Welcome to the Festivus Podcast, Executive Edition, supported by Libery Consulting and hosted by Julian Scott, animation consultant at Film London. I'm Rob Doherty, and in this podcast series we chat to the head honchos, the big cheeses, the numero unos of the kids and family media world. Theirs are the names you see on credits and conference listings with executive alongside. And you've wondered, how did they get there? What influenced them? Who inspired them? And how do I get there? Along the way, hopefully, we'll get to know these enigmatic and powerful people just a little better and realise, wait, they're just like normal human beings after all. And maybe, just maybe, I too can reach those dizzying heights in my career. I hope you enjoy their journeys. If you'd be interested in sponsorship or advertising of this podcast, or indeed the website and events, please drop us a line at aloha@fstvs.net. That's aloha@fstvs.net. Feel free to suggest guests too. Here's a little timely treat for you. A special pre-Manchester Animation Festival episode with the one and only Dr Steve Henderson, CEO, Festival Director and co-founder of said festival, taking place next week. In this chat, Julian delves into Steve's own wonderful backstory, but also that of the festival itself, from his and its humble northern beginnings in Bradford, possibly in a cardboard box, to the celebratory behemoth that bestrides the UK animation industry today. Discover how the festival has played a large part in Steve's own personal life, with his wife Jenny as co-director and young son now being initiated into proceedings, and friendships Steve has made through and at the festival with Ben Mitchell and Aaron Wood that have gone on to form the core of Skwigly Animation Magazine, an incredible resource for the industry. I urge you to check it out at skwigly.co.uk. That's skwigly.co.uk. Now, turn off your mind, relax, and float downstream to the dulcet tones of Julian Scott and Dr. Steve Henderson.
Steve, welcome to the podcast. Now, the Manchester Animation Festival is just around the corner. How are your stress levels?
Really high. Thanks for asking. I don't. They are quite high. Obviously, putting on an event the size of MAF is it takes a lot of work for not just me, but for our fantastic team that put the thing together. People always ask me that question. How are the stress levels and what's it like? It must be really stressful putting on a festival. I don't play sports. I used to when I was a kid, and but I imagine it's like playing football or rugby in the rain. It's grueling and it's horrible and sweaty, and you're being shouted at from a million different directions. You don't know what's sweat, what's tears, but once the game's over, you kind of look back like an idiot and go, "Yeah, that was great fun." So that's the kind of that's what it's like putting on a festival, I imagine. But we love it though. We love getting everyone together for a big animation shindig. It's all worth it.
It's all part of the game. Because you said at one point that I'm the festival director, which basically means I sit in front of emails all day and panic that things aren't in order. Is that? I think that sounds like a fair description of what life is like.
Yeah, I think I might have said cry or something like that instead. I think, it is. Basically, my job as director is completely different to that. I think someone once asked me what it's like being a festival director, but I can't tell them how to be a festival director, but I can tell them how to be the director of Manchester Animation Festival. It's a completely different thing. I think there's also there's different kind of approaches, isn't there, with people when it comes to that. Not many people see me crying in front of my emails. But it all comes together by the magic of everybody else's hard work, I think.
Now, you run the festival with your wife, Jen, don't you? And I know you've got a small child as well. How do you juggle the festival period and family life? Is there downtime for you both, or how does it all work?
Yeah, it's hard work, because we work from home as well. So work and life kind of sometimes blend into one, but we have to take that kind of time to separate the two, especially with our young child, to make sure that the festival isn't taking over his world as well. We're a great team, Jen and I. I don't think we'd have been doing the festival for 10 years were we not. I think the way that we work together is that I come up with the silly ideas and Jen does all the hard work. You know, any man that's that's involved in any sort of, you know, higher up position, you know, there is, you know, just look for the woman doing all the work, I think. Jen is an amazing person. You know, there wouldn't be a MAF without her, really. She's across everything and she understands everything like she's playing 4D chess. And, you know, she's got then with every single decision, she's got an answer for every question. I'm just in awe of her, and not just because she's my wife. But I think as a married couple, it's good to have somebody who is so close to you that you can rely on for a reality check. And we can rely on one another for a reality check, really, as well. And we can talk frankly and honestly with one another, maybe too frankly, maybe too honestly. You know, we both love animation. We both obsess over it as well. We both have very different tastes in animation, I think, is worth. You know, people might imagine because we're a married couple and we put on the festival that the films that we show are films that only Jen and I love. No. We have wildly different tastes, and so that causes a little bit of fun friction, I suppose. But yeah, it's a pleasure, kind of, you know, working with Jen, and we get to go to places like Annecy, and you know, we get to do all the kind of the calendar of events throughout the year. We both come back shattered, and we've got that kind of you know, that partner who can help us kind of decompress and understand it only from our perspective, because Annecy is work, you know, and we find it very difficult convincing family that we've just been to work for. They think, oh, you've just gone and, you know, lounging around in the sunshine watching films. And no, there's meetings. There's so many important things that need to take place. And while we do enjoy it, it is still work, you know. And it's brilliant to have Jen there as that person to be able to understand the whole thing as well. And just, you know, talking about our son as well, you mentioned him. Yeah, we do try and keep him away from it, but this year he's turned 4. And so we've got him involved in helping us select some of the short films for children, which is
brilliant.
It's not child labour, if anyone's listening from or anything like that. We pay him in biscuits. He's very well looked after. But we kind of, he loves watching the films, and he enjoys watching the films. And obviously, we have to be really careful as parents, making sure they're only watching the good stuff. And so we screen the films that we think, you know, will this hold his attention? Will that hold his attention? And then that kind of helps us take it through to the next stage. So yeah, he sits there like a little Simon Cowell, you know, giving things a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Yeah.
And does he ever have a hissy fit if he says, I think this short is a really good one, and you and Jen go, you know what? No, it's not quite good enough for him. Does he have a bit of a monk?
We've not shown him the final selection yet. We daren't. You know, he's the real boss. You know, we're just we're his minions. You know, yeah. We ask. It's funny because when we put the films in front of him, we go, he'll love this. He'll absolutely love this, and he'll surprise us, and it won't hold his attention, or vice versa. We'll go, he won't like this. And he'll be absolutely, like, you know, encapsulated by it. His eyes will be glued to the screen. And it's the same with the kind of wider kids' TV stuff. You know, there are things that we think that he would absolutely adore. And then there are things that we think, oh, he won't like this. And he's glued to it, you know. But there are also things that we see eye to eye on as well. He is absolutely obsessed with Morph at the moment, and obviously Shaun the Sheep and things like that. But, you know, there's not enough Morph episodes for him, really, to be frank. They need to make more.
So do you see in him a little bit of you when you were younger? Because when you were kind of obsessed by drawing and animation when you were a kid, weren't you?
Yeah. So when I was a kid, I was obsessed with drawing. I always wanted to be a Beano artist, and you know, I was a kid who kind of yearned for it to rain, so we could all kind of spend the playgrounds, instead of playing sport outside, we'd all be drawing inside. You know, on the outside when the sun's shining and all the sporty kids are playing, you know, I was the kind of the weak kind of thing that couldn't really get involved in anything. But inside, when it was raining, and you know, we had kind of pencils and crayons and stuff, everyone was kind of impressed with this kind of little club that I drew together with my friends, and we'd like, draw from the Beano. We'd all teach each other how to draw Dennis the Menace and all these characters. So I was absolutely obsessed with it. Luckily, I grew up in Bradford, so it was always raining. So I got a lot of experience from that as well. It was nice. But yeah, the Beano was my kind of major obsession as a kid. And then later on, we had some family friends come round to the house with a VHS that they'd taped off of the telly the night before. And it was some Aardman classics. So it was a grand day out, which was on this tape, and we all sat down, me and a few other kids, we all sat down and watched A Grand Day Out. And then afterwards, it was War Story that was on afterwards, and all the other kids got up and legged it, and went to play outside. But I was just absolutely encapsulated and just stuck around to watch the rest of this video, which had all these amazing animations on it. And then kind of in my head, I knew I always wanted to do something creative, whether or not that was drawing or whether or not that was something, watching. Watching these amazing animations in animation, I wanted to do something like that. But it turns out I've become the person who put the video on. I've become the person who kind of helps the audiences become kind of encapsulated by what's seen on the big screen. I get to share my obsession as a festival director, which is nice.
And did you, you said you always you thought from that point you wanted to be involved in creativity or something to do with animation. What led you further forward through that? Because you went on and you studied animation, didn't you, at a degree?
I did, yeah. I must say as well, we've before going on to kind of Barnsley College and I moved to Barnsley, so from Bradford to Barnsley, so out of the frying pan and into the fire. That was my upbringing, and we grew up in the village that was between the village that they filmed Kes and the village that they filmed Brastoff. So that gives you an understanding as the sort of luxury that I grew up in and the kind of area. They were not, and that's those areas through a Hollywood lens. So you can imagine it in reality. But there was this little escape every week. I used to go to a place called Corridor Arts on a Tuesday. It used to open up, and you'd be able to go in as like a young kid or a teenager, and you'd be able to kind of play around with all the computers. And that's where I kind of learned more professional animation skills. I learned about Photoshop. I learned about Premiere. I learned how to put these things together. That got me into university, yeah. So I went to University of Sunderland first to study animation up there, and then I did an MA there, and then later my PhD in Loughborough.
So you've had I suppose, and I don't mean this in a sort of, a negative way, but you started off in sort of obviously quite a creative, quite a practical, drawing as a kid during the rainy playtimes and stuff like that. And then you started to sort of morph. I thought I'd drop that in. You sort of, thank you very much. You morph sort of into, I suppose, was it a slightly more academic perspective on animation? Is that fair?
Yeah, that is fair. I think I found out very, very quickly after leaving university. So I graduated in 2007 to be greeted by economic disaster. So obviously it was the what was then the credit crunch, I suppose, is as it's historically known. And I found it incredibly difficult to be a freelancer. I didn't have the discipline. I wasn't taught the discipline at university. It's often something that's lamented even today by fresh graduates. And so I took the very easy decision, I think, to take a job which was nothing to do with animation. But it gave me a company car and it gave me holidays during the year. So I had this company car with free petrol. So I used to drive around and see my university mates, or, go to events, go to festivals on my week holidays and things. So I got involved in the Bradford Animation Festival. I was a volunteer at the Bradford Animation Festival for years and years. And it was there I discovered that there was going to be a PhD opening up for animation archives. Professor Paul Wells had announced this thing at the Bradford Animation Festival, and I was sat in the room, and it didn't really occur to me that it's something that I could apply for. But I was getting really, really bored of traveling around the country and this job. This job was measuring people up for uniforms, by the way. That's how far away it was from animation.
Wow, yeah.
I was getting bored of going into Tesco's and, getting people to try uniforms on and then writing down what sizes they were. I was getting bored of having the same conversations with people about how hats work, so it was that kind of like monotonous job. And so I wanted to just take anything.
Did you know that Festivus is so much more than just this podcast? Not only do we host regular free networking mixers in London, Annecy, Munich, Manchester, Bristol, Cannes, and many other locations, as we have done now for 21 years, via our website we have so much more industry-related information that can be accessed. More creative-focused podcasts to illuminate and educate, the latest industry news powered by Skwigly Magazine, the latest training courses, and other invaluable resources to help power your career. And we also have a jobs board to advertise roles directly to our 3,500 website subscribers and over 13,000 social media followers. Sign your studio up now and take advantage of our extremely reasonable rates for job postings. You'll be hitting the motherlode of creative talent. Go to FSTVS.net and start your day the Festivus way.
At the same time, this driving opportunity gave me the opportunity to do more things for Skwigly, which was an online animation magazine, still is. And I'd got more and more heavily involved in Skwigly, and I've been doing lots more writing. So I felt a confidence, with me, having done a BA, with me having done an MA, to be able to, using this kind of squiggly writing, to be able to go on and do this PhD. And I applied for it, and, lo and behold, I got it. And so I found myself thrust into doing a PhD, which was never part of my plan. But I was so bored of doing this kind of this job, measuring people up for uniforms. I knew I had to get out of there, but I didn't want to just get out of there and do another boring job. I knew I had to get into something where I could apply my obsession with animation, basically, and that's what this job, this PhD became an outlet for. It wasn't well paid. It was a stipend, so it was something like £13,000 a year. And so I managed to find a nice cheap flat in Loughborough, and I managed to work out a way of being able to survive off of that tiny stipend, and to be able to get through this the PhD.
And were you doing, whilst, you said you got a stipend of 13 grand, which is not huge, as you say, were you doing other things? Because you were obviously, whilst you were measuring uniforms for people and stuff, like did you launch Skwigly during that time?
No, so Skwigly already kind of existed. So Skwigly started in, I think it was 2005. We have an old Skwigly magazine, a literal paper Skwigly magazine. On the front cover, it's was it Valiant? They filmed with the pigeons in. So that was the cover story of the first ever Skwigly magazine. So it started around about 2005 by David Smith as a paper magazine. It produced one issue, and then it began a website and community. They used to do weekly meetups, and you'd see some absolutely brilliant people attend those things. Joanna Quinn, for instance, used to turn up and be an encouraging part of the community. And then it quietly folded, this magazine. But in 2011, he picked up Skwigly again. And it was around the time that I took a holiday. All my friends at the Bradford Animation Festival had been saying, you have to go to Annecy, you have to go to Annecy. So I saved up enough money to go to Annecy for the first time. And he put out a call on a very young, a young Twitter, I suppose, to say he's looking for writers. And I've been admiring the work of my mate Alex Collier, who'd been doing some work for an animation magazine called Imagine, which was based in Bristol. And so I jumped at the chance to get on with some writing and do some more kind of more writing. So I covered the entire festival. I got my first press pass there. So David upgraded my festival pass to a press pass, which felt like a proper upgrade. It felt like Mario on the mushroom. It was like, proper, here you go. You get to get all this exclusive access. You get to talk to the superstars. You get to go to all the parties. And as David's kind of interest in Skwigly waned, my interest got kind of snowballed. So within 6 months I became the editor of Skwigly, and kind of took on. But in the interim, I told David that I was interested in doing an animation podcast for the site. And at exactly the same time, Ben Mitchell, another one of the writers who joined at a similar time for me, I think he was there a month early, I think, because he covered Stuttgart before Annecy. David arranged a meeting between the two of us to kind of combine our efforts. And we hit it off immediately. Ben and I, same interests. And we began chattering for ages about our shared interests. And it was a little bit weird, those initial meetings with Ben and I, because David would be there, and it was like he thought he had to edit our this friendship that was between Ben and I. So he'd sit in the corner and we'd just be talking, and then every now and then he'd just interrupt us and go, "Yeah, this would be really good podcast stuff." And we'd be like, "Oh, we were just talking." It was a bit odd, a little bit creepy. But yeah, Ben and I would record the podcast at his house. So I'd drive down to Bristol, using this free petrol that I got from the job that I hated, and record once a month. And yeah, it was brilliant. And David had gradually lost interest, and then said he said to me that he wanted to sell the magazine, and I was really kind of nervous at the idea of a complete stranger coming and taking the magazine off our hands and doing what they wanted with it. And so I spoke to Ben about this, and we said, well, we should buy it. We got Aaron Wood involved. Aaron's a really good friend of mine from, we were friends at the Bradford Animation Festival. But what Aaron brought to the table was this kind of fantastic kind of grasp of websites and how they all work, and everything that we needed to be able to take the site to kind of new heights. And so the three of us got together, and yeah, we became the Skwigly management, the three of us. And with Aaron's kind of much needed technical assistance and love for animation, it complemented what me and Ben both brought to the site as well. And the three of us are now the co-owners. We've got an equal footing. We're really proud of the podcast, which is continuing and has been going for years and years. We've encouraged loads of amazing writers over the years. And we've seen the community grow. We've seen the readership grow. We've taken it from this blog into this kind of this fully functioning website. We love it.
Excellent. So you were, as you were starting your PhD, Skwigly was pretty much up and running and solid and doing what you wanted it to do?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we were, while I was doing the PhD, actually, it was kind of like Skwigly was the nice distraction, I think. So I would be working from home on the PhD, and on an evening or a weekend, or sometimes just during a day where I couldn't face anything academic, I'd just spend the day using Skwigly as this amazing distraction. That's where we recorded some of the earlier podcasts as well, and had some some great fun on that as well. So yeah, that's what Skwigly was. So it was taking place at the same time as I was doing the PhD. That's how it was kind of growing, I suppose, at the same time as the PhD.
And your PhD, as I think you said, was animation archives and collections and British children's television animation. What was the inspiration for that as a subject?
Yeah, as I say, it was more of an opportunity than anything else. Obviously, Professor Paul Wells had come into the possession of this incredible archive of animation materials, which the majority of it came from the Hot Animation Collection after the studio closed. Which, it was put together with loads of other collections. There was the Animation People, there was Silver Fox Films, Hibbert Ralph, there was also the Triffic Film Archive. So I wanted to, so I had all this, I mean, Triffic Films, Tim Searle, all the, this amazing stuff that was done for years. So I find myself opening up envelopes and being greeted by like the two fat ladies from the title sequence that was there, you know, on their motorbikes, or a box, and it would be full of clothes, but this was the clothes that the I Am Not an Animal cast wore. So these were the things that were photographed, you know. So Tim's Triffic archive was an absolute treasure trove, and I was excited to do something about that because there was all this 2D TV stuff there as well. And I was really into comedy. I was really into, like, you know, British comedy. So I wanted to explore that a little bit more. I wanted to explore the idea of people being upset by what's put on screen, and you know, the nature of all that kind of stuff. And I gradually found, going through Tim's archive, and anyone who's met Tim will know this, he's not out to upset anyone. You know,
no, he's probably the least upsetting person in the world, I would think.
Yeah. Well, it upset me when I found out that he wasn't upset people, but that's the only time he's ever upset people. But no, it's that kind of, the idea is that I gradually found that it was, the archive couldn't serve my hunch. The idea is that, you know, that the archive, I might find stuff in where people would talk about offence, or how to avoid offence, or how to you know, construct something in which would get a reaction from people. And I instantly found, you know, that's obviously not the case. And then that took me back to the kind of to the hot animation collection, and I found myself kind of seeing that this kind of the majority of the collection was the kind of Bob the Builder story, and a lot of it was the scripts, and a lot of it was that kind of story from ideas. So it had the emails, it had the faxes, it had every conversation that ever went on. There was stuff in there that really shouldn't really have been seen, but there was obviously that kind of helped inform the story as well. These conversations, all very professional, obviously. And yeah, so I found myself with this treasure trove, which allowed me to trace a script and to trace a story of a script right the way from initial ideas. But even before that, from when the writers came together in the studio, and you know, the notes from that meeting right the way through to the finished product, and then the Americanized version of it when they changed the pavement to sidewalk and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, they had every iteration of these scripts. And so the PhD was about creating a system of data management and record collection. So how to organize all this hot animation stuff that's just dumped in boxes, but then using a system that I devised and created an archive to study British children's television animation. So the case study being Bob the Builder, or the episode Bob's Boots, to be specific. So when people ask me what I did my PhD in, I say Bob the Builder just for a shorthand. But yeah, so yeah, that's how I got my PhD in Bob the Builder.
And what was it like going up there? And I mean, I presume, I sadly don't have a PhD, but I imagine it's a bit like, you know, getting a degree. You go up on stage and someone says, "Well done, Steve. Congratulations on your PhD." What did that feel like?
It was good fun. Obviously, it's a bit of a conveyor belt, isn't it? Anyone who's ever had it's a conveyor belt for mums and dads. That's what it is. A graduation. And so my mum and dad was there, and my girlfriend, who didn't know, but in the afternoon she was going to be my fiance.
Oh wow!
I proposed to Jen on that day. But I went up on the stage, and it was Seb Coe, Lord Coe, as he should. Was up on stage shaking hands with people and saying congratulations, congratulations, and so people were just kind of given a piece of paper and kind of sheepishly looking towards their parents in this huge sports hall, and then wandering off the stage to Google who Seb Coe is, and then the younger people, obviously I have huge respect for him, but so he came up and shook my hand, and because it was the PhDs, he felt the obligation to ask, "What did you do your PhD in?" And I just thought he's just going to, I'll say whatever. And he shook my hand and said, "What was your PhD?" And I went, "Bob the Builder," and started walking off. And then he grabbed my hand again and pulled me back towards him. So I find myself being kind of like grabbed by an Olympian and dragged back, like, no, hang on, what? Bob the Builder? And then he turned around to like all the vice chancellors and everything and went, this guy's PhD was on Bob the Builder. And so I was like, oh God, have I done something wrong? I felt this urge to go, actually, it's about a system of data management and it's all about the construction of British children's. But I just kind of like sheepishly wandered off the stage. Just kind of, yeah, they're all kind of shaking their heads at the idea that somebody's going to. But yeah, that was good fun.
But it served you well because, you know, your academic talents and worldwide knowledge of all things has led you on to other sort of interesting academic things like being a contestant on The Tipping Point and The Chase.
Yeah, I don't know. Let's not talk about that. Yeah,
go on, let's.
So yeah, okay. So in any marriage, you obviously there's a lot of give and take, and my wife wanted me to go on as many game shows as possible. I've got a friend, Andy, who went on The Chase and won 15 grand. It's the most that anyone's ever won outside of a celebrity edition. And then he just applies for loads and loads of game shows. And he was always encouraging me and obviously making sure that Jen was in earshot as well. And so he encouraged Jen to fill in the forms. And I said, look, I can't be bothered filling in these forms, Jen, but if you fill them in, I'll go to the auditions. I'll go and do all that kind of stuff. And I did. And I ended up being on The Tipping Point. And being kicked out in the second round. And yeah, but it's a Tipping Point. It was the machine. It wasn't the questions, you know. The Chase, though, that was the questions. It was a question on horse racing that got me kicked out, which was a little bit, that stung a little bit, because I'm not a big horse racing fan, and I never will be now, thanks to Bradley Walsh and his chasers. But the first thing we'd been on The Tipping Point years ago. Obviously, you get to meet people in the green room who are going to be on this kind of thing with you. And the first question that came up, these guys all knew I was into animation. And the first question that came up was, Jessie the Cowgirl is a character from which movie franchise? And I just pressed the button and went, Toy Story. And I could feel their eyes digging into the back of my head. And then at the end of the first round, the first thing they all came up went, you were bound to have known that question. I was like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I'm aware of one of the biggest franchises on the planet.
So it sounds a bit competitive between everyone.
Yeah. There was canal holidays and bicycles at stake, Julian. You can't take these things lightly.
Clearly not. So sort of, we mentioned earlier on, this is the 10th anniversary of MAF.
Yeah.
How did it? And you and Jen were clearly together when this was born. Was it a joint decision, or did one of you wake up one morning and go, "Do you know what? I think we should start an animation festival"?
Not quite. There was a moment when we woke up and thought we should start an animation festival, obviously, but it started in 2014. So there was the Bradford Animation Festival, which I mentioned before, which for me, that cemented it for me. That the Bradford Animation Festival was the most important event going on in my life. It's where I met Jen. It's where I met so many people from the animation industry that are, dear friends now. People that would go on to work in the animation industry, people that have worked on the animation industry, and it's such a formative part of my kind of animation kind of story. I think the Bradford Animation Festival. It's why I love putting on the Manchester Animation Festival, because I hope that it is the part of a lot of other people's stories, and that they get those opportunities and they got those chances to kind of get themselves involved in the industry. But yeah, so it was the closing night of the 2014 Bradford Animation Festival, and the writing was on the wall. It was the last edition. The Media Museum had sold its cinemas, and so the festivals couldn't be put on anymore. And people came up to Jen and I, and they were asking us what we were going to do about it. What are you going to do about it? And we laughed it off. But I think about 5 separate people came up and said, what are you guys going to do about it? And so we thought, well, we kind of feel like we have to do something about it now. And so we, after Christmas, we kind of had a little think about it, and we thought, you know what, we'll ask some people. We'll start seeing what we can do. So we got together with Bill Lawrence, and Bill was the founder of the Bradford Animation Festival in 1994. He founded the festival. And then we convinced Dev Singleton, who was the director of the Bradford Animation Festival, to come on board. And so Bill and Jen were co-producers, and Deb and I were co-directors of the new Manchester Animation Festival. Bill Lawrence asked Dave Moutry, who's now head of culture at Manchester City Council, but was head of home, if we could use their brand new venue, we still use it today. It's an amazing venue. We absolutely love it. And we thought we'd start small. We'd have a few screenings, we'd have a screening competition, and we'd invite a few guests, maybe one a day. But then we started to attract that, so Aardman were putting out Shaun the Sheep movie. And so Will Beach came up with Shaun the Sheep and to talk about the making of that movie. Tom Moore was there with Song of the Sea. So a lot of my Skwigly connections were coming into play here as well, which was really good. The amazing Tim Searle, the amazing aforementioned Tim Searle, he gave us career talk as well, and we thought we'd top it all off by inviting the legendary Brian Cosgrove for an in conversation. We gave him our first fellowship, which was great to be able to do like a clip show with Brian Cosgrove and just say, look, this is Manchester Animation, this is where it starts, so it should start with Brian. And on the Thursday, we gave one of the cinemas to CMC's Manimation as well. So we had a kind of industry contingent there as well, which was wonderful to have involved in the festival. And we'd gone from, the ambition of making something small that would hopefully grow to actually growing into something massive in its first year, because we've been kind of G'd on by the community. The more people we spoke to about it, the more people that we, got involved with us on Twitter and Instagram and everything. And they were kind of encouraging us to do this, because when the Bradford Animation Festival closed down, this community found themselves kind of, what I say, culturally homeless. What do they do in November every year? Where are they going to go? Where are they going to get together? Where are they going to meet one another and have those conversations and see those films and feel enriched by what's on screen or what's been said, or, where are they going to go to kind of sign those business deals or talk about, what's next for the industry. And so people wanted it. And we kind of, worked our socks off to deliver it. Jen and I were coming home from our day jobs so I was teaching, so I'd get home around about, 5, 6 o'clock. And then we'd work until about 2 o'clock in the morning on the festival.
Wow.
To get it done, to watch all the films, to send all the emails, to make sure that everything was ready for the first edition in 2015.
And were you teaching animation whilst you were setting this up?
Yeah. So I was teaching at Wrexham, so I was on the Games and Animation course, and I was also teaching at MMU as well, and I was teaching at Leeds Arts University. So there was various courses that I was teaching on during my kind of the early days of math up until around about 2019, when I went full time as director of the Animation Festival.
This podcast is made possible thanks to the support of the awesome Liberi Consulting. Liberi offers specially tailored industry-related training courses. Check them out at libericonsulting.com. That's LIBERI consulting.com. You can also find links to their fantastic courses on the Festivus website.
Having been to MAF myself, I know you've got the industry days and you've got all the screenings and this, that, and the other. How much of a balance is there, I suppose, in your head and the way that you look at animation between, you were just saying earlier on about there was no way for people to enrich their lives to come together and enrich their lives through animation, but also there's a commercial reality about animation in that, it is a business. How do you balance those two things out in your head?
How do we balance those two things out? It's really interesting one. We don't want to divide them, but we have to divide them. It's important that they all play their part in this wider sphere of animation. Obviously, you have to categorize them so that audiences can find exactly what they need. We've categorized the festival this year because we had so much on. People were asking, I still get emails. I had an email yesterday from somebody saying, what's the best day to attend? I get that one a lot. And I find it very difficult to be able to say, well, I have to know you to say what it is that you want to see. Because if you want to see behind the scenes, if you want to see films, if you want to see industry, if you want to do this, I need to know. So we've got some buttons on the website now that say for film lovers, for industry, and for family, and they really help draw you into the actual areas. So naturally, we have to categorize these things so the audience can find what they need. Yeah, and I think that's good because, in particularly when it comes to like film lovers, who you might say is the people that are more interested in the art of things. Last year we played features like Memoir of a Snail and the Oscar-winning Flow. So give people a chance to see those things ahead of release. And this year we have the UK premiere of Arco. And I Am Frank Elder, Mexico's first stop-motion animated feature film, Arco as well. Arco is absolutely gorgeous. It is, I think it's the film that everyone will point to this year, like they did with Flow.
Absolutely.
So, and Little Annalie and the Character of Rain, which we're screening as well. That's another one up there. Some beautiful aesthetics up there. And for our family, obviously, we've got a special UK preview of In Your Dreams, which is the next one from Netflix. So we're playing big things, alongside these more kind of indie titles, which aren't really going to you won't see them on the side of buses anytime soon, unfortunately. And for families, obviously, we've got loads of interesting stuff as well. We've got the BBC screenings, as well as all these kind of international films for children and for teens. And this year, we're really proud to be working with Hugh to be able to expand the Young Animator of the Year Awards. Which we're really proud to host. This is that amazing initiative from Access VFX and Blue Zoo's Tom Box and friends. It's an amazing thing just to kind of see where the next generation's coming from. And this year we'll be hosting a few more panels, so families get to understand, parents get to understand when kids say they want a career in animation, they get to understand what that might look like. Because, we speak to so many parents who would they say, oh my gosh, my kid wants to be an animator. And they hear it, oh my gosh, my kid wants to be starving to death. And so we kind of want to be able to put on some panels which can showcase that, your kid wants to be part of this community of people. So there's a mix there, isn't there, of kind of industry and the kind of artistic side of things as well coming together, because that's the beauty of animation. Yes, it does need some kind of commercial aspects to it as well, but it also has that sort of that artistic side of things is vitally important. That's the thing that gets sold. So you need to come and you need to be inspired and you need to see these things. We get loads of festival directors. We do get festival directors, but we get loads of company directors, and we get loads of people who don't just come to the Animation Nation Forum, which is our quote unquote industry day. They don't just come for that; they come to see the films as well.
Yeah,
that's what they come to see to get really to get this kind of cultural top up, and to be able to see what the zeitgeist is doing, what people are interested in, and what styles are out there, and who are the new faces in animation, who are the what's happening in animation. Because you could quite easily get stuck behind a desk making the things all day without having a look at the wider picture and seeing what's important. And so as a festival, we like to be able to offer that to everyone. That's why we do these kind of ANF, Animation Nation Forum Plus passes, so people can go and do the festival as well. They can see the short films, they can see the feature films, they can see the talks, they can see all the other bits and pieces that the festival has to offer. Yeah, it's a tricky business, isn't it? But, our motto is animation for all, and we have to deliver on that. So yeah, we do put them all together. Hopefully people can see something for them in the program.
It's interesting you just talking about the the emails and the conversations you have with parents about is my kid wants to go to animation, is it a career? I mean, my dad always wondered when I was going to get a proper job, in his words. And, also from the perspective of you teaching and lecturing at unis on animation courses, there's been quite a lot of talk about this perceived skills gap for quite a while. Do you still see that, this thing which graduates, you've done your degree and then there's the industry out there, but there seems to be a bit of a gap where the industry seems to sometimes think that what graduates are coming out of university with isn't right for them, or isn't right enough for them to start to work in the industry. There's just that sort of gap. Do you think that still exists?
Yeah, that's an age-old question, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
It's a question that people were asking when I left university, and probably when my lecturers were leaving university. It's the question that's always been there. I think we concentrate too much on the gap. We don't necessarily concentrate on the two sides of the chasm where people are pointing at the gap, really. I think universities don't necessarily understand industry as well as they could, and industry don't necessarily understand the role of university as well as they could. And I think that creates the gap. Industry can quite easily say that universities should be training people up. However, it's not a job of a university to train people up. That's what lecturers will say. They'll say, we're not here to train people. We're not a training course. We're an animation course. And I think that's quite a true statement, actually. You know, you don't go to university. Well, a lot of people go to university to get a job in industry. Yeah. But some people don't. There were people that were on my course that was just there to do something different and to be able to teach themselves something new. You know, people do it for themselves. However, I think particularly the way that things work in our country, there's no other place to look for young talent coming through, is there? And I think that generates a skills gap as well. You know, so if there were a way for industry to be able to put on more training or to be able to do stuff that was a little bit more quick and specific, because industry they have to wait 3 years for people to get through university courses, don't they? By the time that's happened, software's changed, and the students might not necessarily have been taught exactly what industry's after. So and whenever I always wince when I hear the statement when people who work in industry say, well, the students aren't learning the right software. I said, well, what is the right software? You're talking about the right software for you on this project now. But in 6 months' time or a year's time, you might be working on a different piece of software. So it's unfair of you to expect industry to expect university or academia to be constantly on top of your wins. So it's a tricky one. It really is. I can't offer a solution to this HR problem. It's not on this podcast. I'm so sorry.
We'll just have to finish it here, because that was my leading question. I thought that's what you were going to give me, was a solution.
Yeah, well, I'm so sorry. I mean, you're going to have to take I thought coming on this executive sessions that I would, being my coronation as an executive, I was going to be given a little crown, but I can see you now snapping the crown in half and throwing it in the dustbin, and that's it.
It's all over, Steve. It's all over.
Yeah.
And talking about thorny subjects and technology, you're quite vocal and clearly have some very strong views on AI. And I think I read something very recently saying that you were yet to see an argument convincing you that AI tools are anything other than a means to cut costs and do away with creatives.
Yeah.
So
that's correct. Yeah.
No, I'm not asking you to justify.
Are you going to present the argument?
No, I'm not. I'm really not. No. Because I'm not. I'm staying completely ambivalent on the whole thing.
Yeah. I'll let you off the hook now.
Thank you very much.
No, I look at AI, and obviously, it does have tremendous applications. It's got immense computational powers that can do absolutely amazing things. Why we are allowing it to do the things that make us human, instead of getting it to answer the questions that the human mind has difficulty comprehending, is always kind of going to puzzle me. Why should it be doing art for us? Well, the reason that it's doing art for us is exactly that. It's doing art for us because it saves money. It's doing art for us because why would you want to work with creatives? Why would you want to have to argue with creatives and have to share a vision? Why would you want to have to collaborate? Says the people who don't understand what animation is at its core. I think that's where the big AI advocates and myself differ. I mean, somebody put on a comment basically saying that AI will do away with the monotonous, repetitive task that animation is. And they thought that AI was helping them. They thought AI was solving a problem without realizing that That's what animation is. That's the humanity of it all. That's what makes it real. That's what makes it truthful. That's what makes it a piece of art, because somebody's had to suffer for that. It can be something as, it doesn't matter if it's kids television. It doesn't matter if it's like the most beautiful, amazing feature film you've ever seen in your life, or the most beautiful thing that your toddler's ever seen in their life. It's been created by a person. It's been made by a person, and that truth shines through. That honesty shines through, and that's what animation is. And so these tech people that want to make AI to use generative to create generative animation, they don't understand that they're not creating animation, because they're not actually being involved in the artistic process. I said earlier on in the podcast about directing a festival is like this grueling thing where, like, playing rugby in the rain or things like that. Animation is that. You hate draw. I know animators that absolutely hate drawing, or hate being under the burning lights of a stop motion studio, or hate kind of their eyes glaring at the screen. But when they see the thing move at the end, and when they know that they've done it, there's a brilliant satisfaction that comes from that. And you can see the heart and soul of the artist in any real piece of animation. I also think as well, you can liken that to kind of a sculpture. A sculptor isn't into sculpting because they love blisters and chiseling. They're into it because they love seeing the sculpt at the end, or the process of it creates that wonderful vision at the end. And AI takes us on a shortcut to that vision, and that shortcut disregards the creatives, it disregards the humanity, and it disregards the thing that makes animation perfect. Also, it can't think, I think, is another thing. It can't think, it can't make new decisions, it can't do anything based on anything that doesn't already exist. So those are my ranting thoughts on AI.
Yeah, but I don't sit on the fence, though. I mean, I think you should be.
I won't sit on the fence. Don't worry about it. We have got a conversation at the festival this year, I will say, which I'm distancing myself from, because there's a lot more nuance to it. It's about retaining creativity in the world of AI, because when we last did an AI conversation, it felt like AI was an option. It felt like it was something where you may or may not get involved in it. And now it's ubiquitous. Every piece of software you use has the equivalent of Clippy the paperclip in the top corner. And they've all got ridiculous names, like Twitter's got Grok, and, all the different apps have got all these different little AI friends that can help you save time or whatever it is. And that's happening in animation software as well. You have Toon Boom have integrated a lot of AI within their software as well. I don't know how much of an impact that's going to have on industry, particularly when it comes to these entry-level jobs. And that's the scary bit that we need to look at, because yes, it will save time, but what will it do to these people that are coming up and want to do those, the monotonous tasks that will get them the foot in the door and will help them understand the bones of animation, where it all begins, where it all starts. I think there's a lot to be said for, us retaining creativity and retaining what it is that makes art, beautiful, unique, and human.
I just love your passion. I love hearing your passion. It's genuinely, I do. It's great.
It goes back as well. Sorry, because you've set me off. I know.
I'm just going to go for a coffee. I'll be back in about 10 minutes.
But it takes me, when I think about AI and I think about those young people that are coming into the industry, that are looking for those entry-level jobs which have been kind of effectively taken over by AI or taken over by these other means. I really worry, because it's yet another troublesome thing that gets in the way, that creates a bigger skills gap. To go back onto the skills gap, I worry, because when I went to university in 2003, tuition fees, they were high, but they were not astronomical. They were not huge as they are now. So I could rely on the support of my parents and hold down a job or three, at university to get me through the year. And now we have these huge tuition fees. And on top of that, the thing that I mentioned, Corridor Arts, the place where I used to go to teach, to teach myself animation, those opportunities don't exist anymore. That Corridor Arts closed down. So I wouldn't be here ranting about AI on this podcast in this day and age, because the opportunities that I had growing up for a working class lad no longer exist. And that, for me, is quite terrifying, because that's losing out a voice of an entire chunk of our society that is deserving. I mean, thankfully, we have things like the Young Animator of the Year Awards, where people can get involved if they have a certain amount of resources at home. But yeah, the opportunities for working class kids simply don't exist anymore. And it's difficult. I think as a society, we need to stop taking money off people through AI and through all these different things, and start investing in people again. I think that's my sermon.
No, it's a good sermon, and you are actually preaching to the converted. But it's one of the things that the recurring themes throughout all these podcasts I've been doing for FSTVS is it's a business, it's an industry, but it's people driven. It's the people. Yeah. You've mentioned numerous names, people like Tim Sun and various other people that, you've worked with over the years and come across over the years, and you remember them, you remember them fondly, you come across them again. And within animation studios, there is that camaraderie and there is that togetherness, and somebody sitting at a workstation, somebody coming past and going, "Oh, have you thought about that?" Or somebody standing up and going across to somebody else and saying, "I really wish I could get the cat's ear to twitch properly. Oh, have a go at this." And it's that collegiate, collaborative process that creates these fantastic animated series and films that the audience love and engage with. And when you start to remove those personalities, you start to remove the personal connection and rely entirely on something like AI, I completely agree with you. I think we're heading down a very, very dark corridor.
Yes, definitely.
So, coming to the end of all this now, what do you hope people will say when, around Christmas time, when the festival's over and they're looking back, what do you hope they're going to look back and say to themselves about the festival?
That's an interesting one. I hope they've enjoyed themselves. Every year we say this as well. I mean, one of the best things that happens to Jen and I is that we meet people who come up to us and say that the festival's done something for them. It can be getting a job, it can be making a new contact, it can be, a life-changing career move or something like that, a meeting. We were at a friend's wedding last year, and complete strangers come up to us and say, "I got a job at MAF last year." And we're like, "Oh, wow, brilliant." That's the thing that kind of makes it all worthwhile. It's the sort of thing that, you mentioned FSTVS, obviously this being a FSTVS podcast, but the FSTVS events do that as well. We have Northwestivus at the festival as well. There's too many fests going on, but yeah, I'm going to trip over sometime. But we have Northwestivus at the festival as well, and it's just that brilliant kind of no bottlenecks, no barriers. Everyone get together, everyone have those conversations, and everyone get involved and find opportunity. Opportunity won't find you. You've got to find opportunity, and that's why we love that. That's what the festival delivers for people, or it's people that come up to us and say, "I loved that film. I'm really looking forward to talking to people who've seen Arco this year, who've seen the character of Rain, who've seen all the short films that we've got in competition as well. I'm really looking forward to hearing what people think about those, and I love those conversations. But yeah, we love hearing from people, and we hope that obviously 2025 will present more of the same opportunities. It's really important that we kind of go to these events, and I would say that obviously it's my festival, but I think it's really important. It was important for me to go to the Bradford Animation Festival, and so it made a massive difference in my life, and I'm hoping that MAF will continue to make those differences in people's lives, whether or not you're a company director, or you're a student starting out, or you're a little kid going to the cinema to see something for the first time. Let's hope that the festival gives something to everyone.
And the morning after the last day of the festival, when you and Jen and your little one are all sort of sitting there, what are you going to put an animated film on to relax?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, I'm not in this so I can watch live action films. I'm not. Yeah. Well, you know, like I said, no, I think what Jen and I'll do to relax is we'll leave our son to watch episodes of Morph and Shaun the Sheep and everything else that he absolutely. Hey, Dougie is obsessed with Dougie, and so we'll leave him to watch them with his grandpops, and Jen and I'll go to a spa. I think that's what we're going to do. That's how we'll relax.
I think it's a very, very smart idea. Steve, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you. I can't thank you enough for finding the time.
Oh, thanks so much. I'm thank you for inviting me on, and I am now an executive. I will use my powers wisely.
Enormous thanks to Steve for taking the time out of his incredibly busy schedule to talk to Julian for this episode. If you haven't already, there is still time to sign up for the Manchester Animation Festival, which starts this Sunday, the 9th of November, and runs all week. I'll hopefully see you there, and at our Northwest of Us event in the evening of Wednesday, the 12th of November. Details for all of this can be found at manchesteranimationfestival.co.uk, and of course at FSTVS.net. This podcast is only made possible with a lot of behind-the-scenes support and logistical help from Janet Balmforth at Liberry Consulting and the wonderfully erudite and charming Julian Scott at Film London. Our eternal gratitude to them both. Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends and colleagues. We hope you've enjoyed this episode, and we look forward to welcoming you back for the next. See you all next week.